You wake up. Within 30 seconds, your phone is in your hand. Before you have had a single thought of your own, someone else's mood, someone else's opinion, someone else's emergency has already crossed the threshold of your mind. Your day has not begun, and yet someone else has already begun it for you. By noon, you have argued silently with 3 people who do not know it. You have replayed a comment that did not mean what you decided it meant. You have refreshed a feed that taught you nothing and walked away angry anyway. This is not because the world is harder than it used to be. The world has always been what it is. The lions in the Colosseum did not become tigers. The plagues did not get worse. The cruel men did not get crueler. What changed is that we forgot we have a choice in how any of it lands. The Stoics looked at a world that was harder than ours in nearly every measurable way. Shorter lives, public executions, no antibiotics, no insulation against winter, no privacy from tyrants, and most of them remained calm in the middle of it. Not because they were cold, because they had located something the world could not reach. What if the thing exhausting you is not the world, but the way you keep handing it permission to decide your day? 2,000 years ago, a man born into slavery with a leg that never healed looked around at a Rome obsessed with money, status, and the opinions of others, and quietly built a philosophy that could not be conquered, because it conquered the only thing that was ever his to begin with, his own mind. His name was Epictetus, and he left behind a line that has survived 2,000 years. No man is free who is not master of himself. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 9 lessons drawn from his life and teachings, from the single distinction that frees you from half your suffering, to the discipline of training your mind before the storm arrives, to the lesson he saved for last about the one thing that is quietly running out. 9 principles that, if you apply them as practice, will make it nearly impossible for the world outside to decide what happens inside you ever again. Welcome to Logostoic. In this video, we are going to look at the 9 lessons of a slave who was freer than his masters, and what they teach you about taking your day back from people who never asked for it. This is not for everyone. It is for the person who is done being moved by every notification, every comment, every mood that walks in the door, and ready to learn the discipline of a mind that no longer asks the world's permission to be at peace. If that is you, like this video, subscribe to Logostoic, and stay for every part of what comes next. Every lesson matters. The order matters. The man we are about to study earned the right to teach this, and you will see why. If you're ready to take your day back, type this in the comments right now. Nothing outside decides me. Now, let us begin. Lesson 1. The Dichotomy of Control. Epictetus opens his most famous work, the Enchiridion, with a single sentence that contains the whole philosophy. Some things are in our power, and other things are not. Your body, not in your power. The body gets sick. The body ages. The body eventually fails. Your reputation, not in your power. People will think what they think. They will misread you, project on you, and decide who you are without consulting you. Your possessions, not in your power. They can be lost in a moment. But the way you judge what happens, yours. The way you respond, yours. The way you choose to use what time you have, yours. This is the first cut Epictetus makes, and it is the cut on which everything else rests. Until you make this cut clearly, you are going to keep pouring your energy into things that were never yours to govern, and wondering why you feel powerless. He grew up making this cut by necessity. As a slave in the household of a freedman who served Nero, he could not control where he slept, what he ate, or when he was punished. But the philosophy he was beginning to learn, under his teacher Musonius Rufus, pointed to one territory no master could reach. The way Epictetus chose to meet what was done to him, his judgment, his assent. Epaphroditus, his master, could order him beaten. He could not order Epictetus to agree with the beating. He could not order him to be afraid of it, or angry about it, or to lose his sense of who he was while it was happening. That choice, the choice of how to meet what had been done to him, was a territory the chain could not enter. And for the rest of his life, Epictetus would teach that this territory belongs to every human being. The slave and the emperor share the same inner citadel. Most people on both ends never visit it. The application is brutal in its simplicity. Before reacting to anything, a piece of news, a comment, an inconvenience, ask the one question that organizes a Stoic life. Is this in my power or not? If it is, act. If it is not, withdraw your energy. Spend it where it can do something. The world will not stop being unfair the day you understand this, but you will stop trying to fight it where it cannot be fought. The first lesson is the cut between what is yours and what is not. The exhaustion you feel is the energy you have been spending on the wrong side of that line. Make the cut. Now. Comment below. I control what is mine. Lesson 2. It is never the event. There's a line from Epictetus that more than any other defines Stoic psychology. Men are disturbed not by the things that happen, but by the views they take of them. Read it again, slowly. The traffic does not make you angry. Your judgment that traffic should not exist, that it should not happen to you, that it is an obstacle to a more important life, that is what makes you angry. The criticism does not wound you. Your judgment that the critic must be right, or that their opinion of you defines you, or that you cannot survive their disapproval, that is what wounds you. If this sounds like a small move, it is not. It is the entire battlefield. Once you see that the disturbance lives in your judgment and not in the event, two things become possible. First, you stop trying to fix the world to make yourself feel better, a project that has no end. Second, you start working on the only thing you ever had the power to work on, the lens you are looking through. Marcus Aurelius, who carried Epictetus' teachings with him through war and plague, wrote in his private notebook a version of the same idea. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Notice that Marcus does not promise the events will be pleasant. He promises something better. He promises that the events will lose their grip. Think about what this actually means in your week. The same email that ruined Tuesday for the man who read it as a personal attack could have been ignored entirely by someone who read it and asked, "Is this true, or is this his bad day landing on my screen?" Same email, same words on the page, two completely different days. The difference was not the email. Try this today. The next time something irritates you, do not ask, "Why is this happening?" Ask, "What am I telling myself about this? What story am I adding to a neutral fact?" Almost every time you will catch yourself in the act of building your own cage. You have not been hurt by the events. You have been hurt by the story you keep telling about them. Stop the story. Now, type below, the event is neutral. Lesson 3. The sacred pause. Between what happens to you and how you respond, there is a space. It is small. Most days you blink past it. But everything Epictetus teaches points to that space, because that space is where you are. He called this the discipline of assent. Before you agree with an impression that arrives, you have the right to pause, to examine it, to ask, is this true? Is this mine to carry? Is this the kind of response I would choose if I were the kind of person I am trying to become? Most people never use this space. They live as if there were no pause, as if the stimulus arrived and the response left, and they were merely a corridor through which it passed. But that is not who you are. You are not the corridor. You are the one who can stand at the door. Epictetus would tell his students at Nicopolis a simple practice. When an impression arrives, do not say, "I am angry." Say, "An impression of anger has arrived," and then ask, "Do I assent to this? Do I sign my name to it?" This sounds small. It is not. It is the difference between being moved and being chosen, between reacting and responding, between a mind that is governed from the outside and one that is governed from within. Imagine someone hands you an envelope at the door. You do not have to open it. You do not have to keep it. You can read the return address, decide it is not for you, and hand it back. That is the pause. That is where you live. It is also where everything Stoic begins. Without the pause, you have no philosophy. You have only reflexes. The whole project of becoming someone, instead of being whoever the day's impressions decided you would be today, depends on whether you can hold that small space open. Hold it open long enough to choose. Practice it once today. The next impression that tries to move you, pause, examine, choose. You are not your first reaction. You are the one who can pause before signing your name to it. Hold the pause, use it. Comment below, "I pause before I assent." Lesson 4. Examine every impression. This follows directly from the pause, but it deserves a lesson of its own. Your mind is constantly receiving impressions, thoughts about yourself, judgments from others, news from the world, sensations from your own body. Most of them arrive uninvited. Most of them want immediate access to your inner state. Epictetus' instruction is this: test what arrives. Do not let it pass the gate just because it is loud or insistent. Ask 3 questions of every strong impression. First, is it true or is it a story I have constructed? Second, is it about something in my power or something outside it? Third, if I accept this as true, what kind of person do I become? You will find that most of what wants to enter does not survive these questions. The thought that your boss hates you because he did not reply quickly survives one question. Did he hate you yesterday when he praised you? The story that you are behind everyone your age survives none of them. Behind in what race? Whose race? Toward what? A man who lived through nearly 8 years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam, James Stockdale, said something the modern world should remember. The Enchiridion of Epictetus saved his life, not because it gave him hope, but because it taught him how to refuse to accept impressions the situation tried to force on him, impressions of despair, of finality, of meaninglessness. He examined them, and he did not let them in. He would later describe how the prison camp tried every day to install in him a version of himself that was broken, hopeless, and willing to betray his men. The impressions arrived constantly, through interrogation, through isolation, through rumors planted by guards designed to crack him. He let them arrive, he examined them, and he refused to sign his name to the ones that were not his. That was the Stoicism that saved him. Not a feeling, a discipline. If a man could do that in a North Vietnamese prison camp, you can do that with the thoughts that ambush you on the way to the kitchen. Examine the impression. Do not be a country whose borders anyone can cross. The thoughts that arrive are not orders, they are visitors. Most of them do not belong to you. Test what arrives. Now. Type below, not every thought is mine. Lesson 5, you are not your role. Epictetus had every reason to confuse his circumstance with his identity. He was born a slave in a household of Rome, owned by a freedman who served Nero. His leg was, by ancient accounts, permanently injured, broken by the cruelty of his early life. By every measure the world cares about, he was nothing. And yet, when his student Arrian wrote down his lectures, the man speaking is not a slave. He is a free philosopher. His freedom is not in his title. It is in his understanding. This is the part that should stop you for a moment. The man who by Roman law was the property of another man, wrote a philosophy that the emperor of Rome later carried with him into battle. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, sat at night reading the words of a former slave. The title told you which one had power. The understanding told you which one was free. This is one of the hardest Stoic lessons, because the world will never stop trying to convince you that you are your role. You are your job. You are your relationship status. You are your follower count, your bank balance, your title. The world says, this is who you are. Epictetus would tell you the world is mistaken. You are the one who plays the role, not the role itself. You took up the role, you can put it down. The role might change. The one who chose to step into it does not. This is not a license to abandon responsibility. He had students, he had a school. In his later years, he is said to have adopted a child whose own family could not care for it. He took up his roles fully, but he never confused them for himself. In the same way, the doctor is not the lab coat. The mother is not the title. The man with the impressive job is not the impression he leaves at a party. Today, try this. When someone asks who you are, do not answer with what you do. Answer in your own head with what you choose to value, how you choose to act, what you refuse to be moved by. Do not give the world a label to confuse for you. You are not the label you carry. You are the one who chose to wear it and can put it down whenever you decide. Drop the label. Stand up. Write in the comments, I am not my role. Lesson 6. Practice voluntary discomfort. This is a lesson the modern self-improvement industry has flattened into cold showers and ice baths. Epictetus would have considered the practice good and the framing shallow. The principle is this: the things that hurt you have power over you only to the extent that you cannot bear them. If you practice bearing them in small ways, voluntarily, on your own terms, you weaken their grip on you when they arrive uninvited. He had his students at Nicopolis practice eating only what was strictly necessary, wearing only what was strictly required, sleeping where it was uncomfortable, not because suffering was the goal, but because the soul that has chosen hardship is the soul that is no longer afraid of it. Musonius Rufus, Epictetus' own teacher, took the practice further. He had his students train themselves to bear cold without complaint, to fast without dramatics, to walk long distances on foot when they could have ridden, not for the physical benefit, though that came too, for the mind that learned not to flinch at small hardships. Because the mind that does not flinch at the small ones is also the mind that does not collapse at the larger ones. There is a kind of fear that runs your life from underground, the fear of being uncomfortable, the fear of being hungry, cold, bored, alone. Most of what people call ambition is actually the avoidance of these fears. Most of what people call exhaustion is the cost of running from them. When you choose discomfort in small doses, on your own terms, you take the weapon out of the world's hand. The cold shower is not impressive. What is impressive is the fact that you no longer panic at the thought of cold water, and that small calm transfers into the bigger storms. Pick one comfort this week and live without it. Skip the coffee. Sit with the boredom without reaching for the phone. Walk somewhere instead of driving. The discomfort will be small. The point is not the discomfort. The point is the message you send to your own nervous system. I am not afraid of this. You cannot be controlled by what you have chosen to befriend. What you can endure on your own terms, no one can use against you. The comforts you cannot live without are the comforts that own you. Befriend the discomfort. Now, comment below. I choose what waits for me. Lesson 7. Train before the storm. There is a Stoic practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, of what could go wrong. For most of the wellness industry, this would be a horrifying suggestion. Imagine bad things happening on purpose. Will that not make you more anxious? Epictetus would tell you the exact opposite is true. The mind that has rehearsed loss is the mind that loss cannot destroy. Here's how he framed it. When you kiss your child goodnight, he said, remember that they are mortal. Not so you suffer in advance. So you stop pretending the thing you love is permanent. So the goodbye, when it comes, does not arrive as a betrayal, but as the completion of something you always knew was finite. This is not pessimism. It is the deepest kind of love, the kind that has accepted the cost of caring and is therefore free to care fully. It is also the deepest kind of preparation. You do not wait until the storm arrives to learn how to stand. You train before. You sit in a quiet moment and imagine what you would do if the job ended, if the relationship ended, if the health failed, if the worst thing you can imagine arrived tomorrow. Not so you fear it, so that when something difficult does come, and something difficult will come, your mind has already walked that road. It is not new territory. You are not flailing in the dark. Marcus Aurelius did this every morning. He would rise and remind himself, today I will meet people who are ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous. He was not being cynical, he was preparing, so that none of it would surprise him into reaction. This is the difference between the man who falls apart at the first betrayal and the man who is sad about it, but not destroyed by it. The second man did not love less. He prepared more. He had already imagined in a quiet hour what he would do when something he could not control finally arrived. So when it did, his mind was not new to the territory. The pain was real. The collapse was not necessary. This is what your thumbnail told you when you clicked on this video. Train your mind before the next storm. The storm will come. The only question is whether you trained or whether you waited for it to teach you in the moment what you could have learned in advance. The storm is coming. The only question is whether you trained for it or whether it teaches you in the moment what you could have learned in advance. Train now or be taught. Type below, I train before the storm. Lesson 8. Withdraw from what does not matter. Most of what consumes you is not worth the energy you give it. This is not cynicism. It is accounting. You have a finite amount of attention each day, a finite amount of emotional bandwidth, a finite number of times you can be irritated, distracted, or drawn into other people's emergencies before the day is over, and you have done nothing with it. Epictetus would have his students measure their attention the way a frugal man measures his money. Where is it going? Is the return worth what you are paying? And he would have been ruthless about this audit. The Stoics did not have time for the polite fiction that everything in your life is equally important. They knew it is not. They knew that a few things deserve all of you, and most things deserve nothing. And the great failure of an ordinary life is reversing those two categories. Spending the most on what matters least, spending the least on what was always going to matter most. The argument with a stranger in the comments section. Worth it? The replay of an old offense at 11 at night. Worth it? The 45 minutes scrolling through a feed that taught you nothing and left you slightly worse than it found you. Worth it? What he would tell you is that withdrawing from what does not matter is not a passive act. It is the most active thing a person can do. To choose, in a world built to fragment your attention, what you will pay attention to, that is the daily Stoic act. He would not have called it focus. He would have called it discipline. The discipline of refusing to be everywhere in order to be somewhere. Try this. Make a list in your head of 3 things you can stop spending energy on. Starting today, not forever, just today. A grievance you have been rehearsing, a comparison you have been making, a worry that has not solved anything in months. Withdraw the energy. Notice what becomes possible when it is not bleeding out the side of you. This is how a Stoic gets things done, not by adding effort, by refusing to spend it on what was never going to pay him back. Your attention is not infinite. The energy you spend on what does not matter is energy that will not be there when something does. Withdraw. Reclaim the day. Comment below, I withdraw from what is not mine. Lesson 9. Your time is short. The final lesson is the one Epictetus saved for the end of the Enchiridion, and it is the one that organizes all the others. You are going to die. Not in some abstract sense. Actually, the hours you have today are not coming back. The version of you reading this sentence is, in a quiet way, gone by the time you finish reading it. Most people use this fact to be afraid. Epictetus would have you use it to be free. Because if your time is finite, then you cannot afford to spend it being moved by people who do not care about your finite time. You cannot afford to spend it on quarrels that will not matter in a month. You cannot afford to spend it pretending to be someone you are not, in front of people whose opinions you will not remember. The shortness of life is not a tragedy. It is the only honest accountability you have. When he was old, walking with that limp the world had given him, Epictetus would tell his students, "Remember, you are a guest at a banquet. Take what is passed to you with thanks. Do not reach across the table for what is not. Do not weep when the dishes are cleared. The banquet is going to end." Seneca wrote a similar thing in a letter to a friend. We do not receive a short life, we make it short. We are not poor in time, we are wasteful of it. Both of them were saying the same thing in different words. The shortness is real. What you do with it is yours. And the man or woman who lives with that fact in front of them, every morning, not as a fear, but as a clarifier, wastes very little of it. This is the lesson hidden inside every other lesson in this video. You are not going to be here long. The discipline of mind is not a hobby. It is the way you make sure the time you have is actually yours and not someone else's, leaked away through 1,000 small surrenders. Take your hours back. They are the only thing you have ever truly owned. And no one outside of you can decide what you do with them, unless you give them that decision. Your hours are the one thing no one outside of you can take, unless you give them. Take your hours back. Now, type below, my hours are mine. 9 lessons, 1 man, born a slave, walking with a limp, owning nothing the world counts. And yet when his students wrote his words down, the freest man in any room, what did Epictetus understand that everyone around him missed? He understood that the dichotomy was real, that some things are yours and some things are not, and trying to govern what is not yours is the most exhausting work in the world. He understood that events do not disturb you, your judgments do. He understood that between what happens and how you respond, there is a sacred pause where your entire freedom lives. He understood that the impressions which arrive uninvited can be examined, tested, refused. He understood that you are not your role, however convincing the role pretends to be. He understood that the comforts you cannot live without are exactly the comforts that own you, and that voluntary discomfort chosen on your terms sets you free of their grip. He understood that the storm is coming and the time to train is now. He understood that withdrawing from what does not matter is the highest form of presence. And he understood, finally, that the hours you have are short, and that this shortness is not a wound but a gift, because it forces you to live now, and not on the fantasy of a longer later. These 9 lessons fit together. They are not 9 isolated tools. They are one philosophy with 9 doors. The world will not stop reaching for your day. People will not stop having moods. Notifications will not stop arriving. Storms will not stop forming on the horizon. But you are no longer required to surrender your inner state to any of them. That was what a slave in Rome figured out 2,000 years ago. And it is still true, and it is still available to you. Starting today, that is the line. Not someday, today. If this video resonated with you, if even one of these 9 lessons landed somewhere it was needed, please take a moment to like this video. Not as a favor to me, as a small act of stewardship. The wisdom of a man like Epictetus has survived 2,000 years, not because of marketing, but because every generation that found it useful passed it on. Your like helps this generation find it. In the comments below, write one thing you choose to take back today. Not someday. Not when conditions are right, today. The Stoics believe the person you want to become is not waiting at the end of a long road. He is already inside you, waiting for you to act like him. The action is what makes him real, so write it. One thing. The day you take back, the comparison you put down, the storm you decide to train for, the role you stop confusing for yourself. Write it where you and I and the rest of this room can see it. Because Epictetus would tell you, a commitment spoken in public has more weight than a vow whispered to yourself in private. If you want more of these videos that go past motivation, past quotes, past the surface, into the real philosophy that built leaders, soldiers, prisoners, and emperors, subscribe to Logostoic. We are building this room one viewer at a time, and the room only works if the right people are in it. May you train before the next storm. May you stop handing strangers the keys to your day. And may you remember, every morning, what a man named Epictetus understood while wearing chains, that the only thing no one could ever own was the way he chose to meet what came. That same freedom is yours. Use it.